Ukraine, because Moscow must be answered, because there must be pain. So vodka took the penalty to make example, while civil nuclear carried on by separate category. Vodka refused, uranium cleared, Russia condemned, civil atoms spared. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, that is where it parts. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, Russia gets the sanction. Nuclear slips on past. They said no common trade, no comfort from that side. Yet yellow cake enrichment fuel are bypassed and allowed on through. Existing works, civil plants received what they required. One crate held at customs, one reactor chain state supplied. Spirits held back, reactor freight through. War in the wording, nuclear exemption in view. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, that is where it parts. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, Russia gets a sanction. Nuclear slips by as essential. Project carve out still alive, packs 2 under special handling.
Hello everybody, that's sanctions for vodka.
One rule for tavern goods,
your description,
one rule for
comment
reactor
section.
freight, one rule for public sanction, one rule for what they weigh. Call it civil, call it existing, call it continuity. Spirits refused, uranium welcome, that's the discrepancy. Russia denounced nuclear trade allowed, that is where it splits apart. What they forbid for common optics, they let uranium pass untouched. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear, that is where it parts. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear. Sanctions for vodka, not nuclear.
That. Sanctions for vodka. So they put sanctions on Russia's vodka, but not under nuclear fuel that the Americans are using, and the British are using, and the French are using. Quite convenient. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Oh, David Wilcox has passed on, eh? Wow. That's crazy. Could President Trump's temperament raise nuclear use concern? That poll coincides with a pretty cool story. We don't know if it's true, but it definitely wouldn't surprise us or anybody else, I don't think. You better open up that straight. Remember those words? I'm going to destroy a civilization will die tonight. Remember those words. And what else could you do that with? The A-10 is going to do it with their depleted uranium munitions over time, but only nuclear weapons could pull off such a hideous act. Trump wanted to use the nuclear codes rumors in White House have denied it, of course, which you expect the media to say it. And we got that video, actually, we'll play that right now. We'll play that right about any moment. Larry Johnson, now I really like Larry Johnson. I've listened to Larry Johnson for quite a few years. He's an ex-CIA analyst, same as Ray McGovern and quite a few other, Colonel Wilkinson. There's quite a few of them that have been very vocal, and they're in their 70s and 80s, and they've been very vocal about this perpetual war. And have incredible insight, and I must admit, they're very rarely off the beaten path. They're very focused, especially Ray McGovern. How can you not love Ray McGovern? And Larry always got the colorful shirts wherever he's doing interviews. He looks like he's on vacation on tropical island somewhere. How can you not like that? I think he's 75 or something. Let's put his video up there where he's talking to the judge. Napolitano. Here we go. I'll get it up
deal with it. And then there was a report out that they had an emergency meeting Saturday night. And apparently, well, one report coming out of that meeting at the White House is that Trump wanted to use the nuclear codes, and General Dan Kane stood up and said no. He invoked his privilege as the head of the military, so to speak. It was apparently quite a blow up. There are pictures of Kane coming out of that meeting with his head down to the ground. So, you know, there's some very, very bizarre things going on in D.C.
Well, on Saturday night, excuse me, Larry, Trump said, this is hard to say with a straight face, but this is what he said. Trump said that the U.S. and Iran would jointly excavate the enriched uranium and remove it. Has he lost his mind?
You can't move that uranium. It's plutonium. It's very high. It's weapons grade plutonium. You can't put that in a suitcase or something unless it weighs 50,000 pounds. How are you going to move it? You need a special transport truck with like 100 wheels on it. You can only travel at 4 or 5 miles per hour. People walk alongside of it. And generally, it's only moved across the street to the common spent fuel pools in nuclear power plants. It's that's the gallows laugh. You can't just go in and snatch it. It's a total fabrication. Somebody want to defend that? You can call in 709. Bloop. I screwed up already, did I? Don't know what I'm doing anymore. Let me bring up my phone number here. You can call in 709. You want to defend my comment. Or you want to challenge 709 in Canada, 740-4076. You can't just go in and grab uranium. You need like a 50,000 pound cast to put it in. It's a big deal. It's a slow process. It'll take a couple of days just to get it off site. You can't put it in a helicopter. You can't race down the highway with the A-10 Warthogs blasting everything out of the way either. It just, right, that assertion is absolutely irresponsible to make. Let's keep going here.
A short answer, yes. There's Donald Trump is there is something seriously wrong with him in terms of what his tweeting on social media, or on Truth Social in particular, and then the crazy public statements. Go back and look at what he said on Friday. In the period of about 30 minutes, he claimed that Iran's agreed, there's going to be peace, a deal is near. It was all manipulating the stock market and the commodities markets, but none of it was true. And Iran's sitting there watching what he's saying and is saying, you begin to come to the position that you can't trust anything that is coming out of Donald Trump's mouth.
Well, I have never caught Larry fabricating, misrepresenting, being dishonest or deceptive or deceitful or disingenuous a single time. Trump now. If you put a cut in your arm, you would have died a long time ago every time you told a lie. You have no arm anyway. Former CIA official Larry Johnson claimed Trump tried to use nuclear codes during a White House meeting. There's a lot of credibility. We know that what he's doing, like they killed 170 little tiny girls for their opening salvo. That was on purpose to shock the country, right? Because like if you had 170 young girls die in your country, the whole country would be just riveted, right? That was the idea of that original opening salvo. And that was done from a submarine, right, with a Tomahawk. But everything he said there is legitimate, right? The only speculation, because he's an insider, it's not really speculation. He knows all the players. He doesn't have to put his ear to the wall. People are reaching out to him that are, right? He's not getting it. I doubt Hawley's getting it so-called secondhand, right? I'm sure he's getting it from the original witnesses. And like everything else he's talking about, how Trump lost his mind here and lost his mind there during all this. They must have some pretty incredible blackmail on Trump. And the speculation with Epstein, that's how it works, right? That whole system. They need to have absolute power over you to make sure they can pull you back. Because look what they had to kill Kennedy, right? They didn't have that big stick they can wave in front of his face. Johnson's alleged General Dan Kane, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, refused to authorize a nuclear launch on April 20th. Right, Trump, they sent in the aircraft carriers, which were sitting ducks, particularly to the cluster missiles, and the media was constantly describing it as cluster bombs. Cluster munitions don't have jet engines on the back of them. The cluster missiles that they were using extensively were firing in between 20 to 80 rockets at them, missiles at them. They looked like they were guided. And you can see the engine. You can go look up the videos yourself. You see all the engines behind it. The media is just crazy how much they lie, as you'll see later. Has Donald Trump tried to use the nuclear codes in the war between the United States and Iran? The hypothesis bounced around the web after statements by former CIA official. No, that was the administration released that information to try to rein in the madness of a nuclear. Because now Israel can go ahead and use nuclear. And they'd be happy to do it. There's enough crazies in the administration with Benjamin Netanyahu that have stated clearly they would use nuclear weapons. If they can push a button and blow up Gaza, every Palestinian there, they would do it. And not everybody, but the majority of the people in Israel would do that. At least 80% of them are gung-ho for the crimes against humanity we're witnessing there. It all started with the words of Johnson, Larry Johnson, who I have a great deal of respect, a great deal of admiration for this man, for being vocal, for speaking out, for refusing to sit silent. It takes courage, it takes fortitude, which is sorely missing in the current administration. We've seen every atrocious act you can imagine. Israel complains because Iran hit a school. Yet they destroyed 900 schools just recently in Lebanon, or in Iran. They destroyed, kicked 1.3 million people displaced permanently, razed their homes, blew up their villages. They had 5 million refugees before October the 7th from Palestine. There was only 2.2 million people left. Most of them were children. There's at least 670,000 missing, and they're assumed buried under the rubble of the homes and businesses of schools and universities and hospitals of 2.2 million people. Okay? All right? How's the censorship going to boot me tonight? I wonder. What are they? Just bear with me here. I really am too much of a pack rat, but I don't. And on the other side, if I don't grab it and I want it, and I don't got it, I'll beat myself up for 2 weeks. So better safe than sorry. This is a very popular Israeli blogger with a guest on, obviously both of these were soldiers, talking about if they had a button, they would blow up all of Palestine. Poof, God, give me the button. And they're serious, and they allude that the majority of the Israelis are like-minded.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. That's just, I think most Israelis
If
probably
that's
agree.
the choice, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, even if it's not like right now,
Yeah, no.
I would press it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same with the territories.
Give me that button and press it right now.
There you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
Yeah, most Jewish
They wouldn't.
Israelis.
They wouldn't post. They wouldn't talk about it like I am.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't
Most
post.
Jews
They wouldn't say
would.
I pressed it, but they would press it. Right? Like if they were in a
Yeah.
closet alone, they would. They wouldn't even hesitate.
Mm-hmm.
Someone came to them and Hadar said, "No one will know. You press this, all the Palestinians are gone." You'd be like, "Fucking hey, is there another one?"
They probably practiced that 3 or 4 times before they actually shot the video on top of that. That's the scary thing about... There's some sick people on the planet. And that's definitely a couple. Excuse me. Struggling here. Hang on a second. There you go. I think I got it this time. Just keep it going. It all started with the words of Larry Johnson. And I watched that podcast live. I caught that actually live. And I downloaded 3 versions of it, the short versions. I'm going to struggle with everything here tonight or what? Just keep it rolling. I'll get used to it. Well, at least we haven't got the yellow streak of death across my screen for 2 hours like we did last night. And I had a new security implemented 5 minutes before we went live last night, right, to protect my stream. According to on fiber optics. According to Johnson's account, Trump allegedly tried to use the nuclear codes during a heated meeting, which took, I couldn't imagine, a heated meeting, so that's appropriate. Took place last Saturday, which was true. It did take place on Saturday, on the Middle East crisis, of course. They said if they open the Strait of Hormuz, that'll end the war, but it was open before they started the war. So I'm very confused. If they knew that closing the strait could end the war, why would they attack the people that could close the strait? Just a thought. Crazy thought, I know. You're crazy, man. According to Johnson's account, he tried to use the codes. That's frightening, and that's why we're covering it, because we cover all things nuclear, so to speak. Newsweek, you see the censorship on the show last night? It was an incredible show, and the first half an hour was bang, man. We were banging on. Newsweek reconstructs the picture, also reporting the White House. We had a good groove on it there last night. Blunt denial, which through his spokesperson, and they're the hard shows, the one we done last night on the Freedom of Information files. They're brutal. I love them, but they're brutal. We got more of that coming up. Right after we get through these first two stories, we got 40 pictures from 2011 I want to show you. That's brutal stuff, too. Criticized the spread of the rumors. Well, everything's a rumor. Unless the horse comes out, says it itself. It's always a rumor, right? Johnson's account not supported by evidence, but it is in many ways, right? He's an insider. He's an analyst. He's got a long history of being methodical, thoughtful, and stoic. He's 100% standing his ground still. Not supported by evidence, but it is, because he even provided enough evidence there. He didn't just let it hang there on its own. He put supporting documentation. And it was true, there was a meeting. He did leave with his head down. There was a controversy. Trump is desperate. That administration is desperate. Israel got some kind of big stick there hanging over his head. And he needed to put his balls to the wall for Israel to back up. Well, I tried, and he walked out. I can't help it. I don't have the cards. I'll still be your boy. Number one of the Joint Chief of Staff to number one. And that's his job, is to stand his ground. And, you know, somebody's demanding nuclear when there's other ways to approach it, that would have been the appropriate momentum to choose. According to Johnson, the words, the exchange of words apparently turned to a real argument. Of course it did. When General Kane allegedly refused, apparently he did refuse because he didn't launch missiles. So the use of the so-called nuclear codes. And I know they retired like 12 generals, multi-star generals, in the first week. They had dissenting voices. FBI investigating the disappearance of scientists tied to nuclear space programs and nuclear innovations, right, working for the national laboratories. An investigation into the possible link among the at least 10 scientists. Now, personally, that's, I'm not going to say it out loud. They should kill them all. But we could do without these scientists on our planet. They're the threat to our planet. Same as the universities, the School of Mass Destruction that are designing all this nuclear stuff in the first place, providing the autistic savants that the industry needs, right, that can focus. Most of these high-ranking people are autistic savants, right? Yes, the people that knew them in high school and college, and they'll tell you they were the most dysfunctional people. You used to tie their shoes for them every day, Dana. But eventually they train them to be able to, they'll pick them up and drop them off at home every day if they got the mathematics. And these people are looking for acceptance on a desperate level. And that's their They're not overachievers. They're artistic savants that are scooped up, are singled out by the universities and then scooped up by the military-industrial complex. Died or disappeared, since it's an interesting story, right? I'm always expecting them to kill me off. And the censorship on me right now, you would think that's coming down the road, because that's normally how that works, right? When they took down my other site, I had lots of traction. This site has no traction. It's absurd. I've only been doing it for 25 years, so I guess Unconfirmed reports of at least 10 individuals with ties to the U.S. nuclear secrets or rocket technology who died mysteriously vanished in recent years. We've got a list of them coming up here in a second. If accurate, these deaths and disappearances represent a grave threat to the national security and U.S. personnel with access to scientific secrets. The system is so corrupt. There's so much. Like, say, the original nuclear scientists had spies spying on them all the time. Team of them. And then they had a team of spies spying on that team of spies, and a team of spies spying on that team of spies that were spying on the spies that were spying on the scientists. They were using honey traps, and they never, there's a huge amount of money allocated for that. It's a huge industry, thousands of spies. So there's a lot of bizarre stuff going. There's still, that operation is still active from the Manhattan Project, right? That's still true today. They have other ways of spying now, right? More intrusive ways of spying, but it doesn't mean the effort is not being applied. You had a NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory research scientist who worked on asteroid deflections and comet studies. So theoretically, he could have seen something and known of something and been worried and they had to shut him down. That doesn't mean he's dead. I mean, they isolated him. A long-time principal researcher specializing died at the age of 59, rather. But you don't know what is in these people. It's so easy to make the mask and put it on. I'm not suggesting a conspiracy theory, but I'll put it out there. Next one, Frank, principal researcher specializing in advanced satellite microwave systems. Died at the age of 61. No cause released. There was no autopsy performed. Well, they didn't want to see him full of tumors, maybe, right, from working with nuclear technology. Typically, these guys, when they die, they have insidious carcinogenic damage to their bodies. But they didn't want the autopsy personnel to get radiated, maybe, too, right? Because co-inventor of a nickel superalloy used in rockets, Monica, disappeared June 22nd. She was 60. She was out hiking. She was an avid hunter and a hiker and has not been found. She most likely would have been carrying weapons. That particular, I looked her up. Former Los Alamos National Laboratory employee vanished while walking near his home in New Mexico. He was 78 years old. He could have been in a ditch, could have wandered out in the woods, could have had a stroke, wandered into a pond, or he could have been jacked. I mean, at that age, you got an incredible history that's very valuable, right? Los Alamos employee with high security clearance disappeared on June the 26th. Melissa, I looked her up. Her case remained unsolved. Garcia, 48, government contractor, last seen leaving his home in Albuquerque, the nuclear wasteland of Wasteland. They have a big Navy research, Loveless Respiratory Research Institute, where they use radiation on animals there. He was a custodian at the Kansas City National Security Campus, which manufactures non-nuclear components for nuclear weapons. Well, it's components for nuclear weapons. And so understanding some of those electronics and components is the secret to defeating those systems, right? Jason Thomas, researcher whose body discovered in Massachusetts lake. What was his age? I didn't see it there. Director, MIT, Plasma Science Fusion Center, shot multiple times. Somebody wanted his job. We covered that, didn't we? Somebody wanted his job. And the guy who shot him would have got his job, apparently. Carol Grillmere, a Caltech astrophysicist who collaborated with NASA on exoplanets and near Earth objects, was shot to death on his front porch also. Oh, that was the guy I was talking about, not the other guy. A retired Air Force Major, William Neil McCaslin, a retired Air Force Major General with ties to propulsion research, connections to, well, the UFO programs are real. Like the evidence on that, there's a lot of evidence pointing to deep-sea UFO bases that have been here long before we showed up, before the Neanderthals even walked on the surface. After leaving, right, there's a lot of evidence to support that. Like if you look at churn, then you have to expand your reasonings, because the average person don't even know what churn is. They don't understand that the world is a lot different than we're led to believe through our medias and our Hollywood. Like churn, allegedly, they found 17 dimensions. A churn, like, Lake Geneva, for instance, which is the lake closest to it is a big lake. There's incredible amount of documentation that the CIA has a program under that lake where there's 300,000 people, way under that lake. If you look, I posted a video, a small presentation on churn. If you watch that, I think I've done two maybe, but the first one I've done, I provide you with some pretty rock solid documentation. So this is what they want, a 91 mile circumference tunnel for their experiments. This is United Nations, by the way, and it's paid for by 195 member countries. United Nations is the biggest scam imaginable, right? They have a subsidy for everything, and everything is paid for by all the signature countries. And they're the organizers, UN. And they have an agenda to protect incredible technologies that exist. So we don't know. Let's go back for a little tiny bit here and talk about the Freedom of Information from last night, where we still got a lot of that to get through. We still got a bunch of stories to get through from today. This was back to page 32. I think last night we were at page 79 or something, but it's okay because that's the rhythm of this story. There was screening up till March the 24th in Japan, Fukushima, and the Daini nuclear events. Now, at the top of Fukushima, now officially nothing got out of Fukushima, right? Everything is in the tanks, and they're releasing very little every year. So when you look at the building to your left, that's reactor 4. Now, I know what you're saying. No, Dana, that's not reactor 4. Reactor 4 is perfect. I've seen it on TV. Well, I don't want to be the party pooper, but the fuel pools reactor cores at the top of the building, that's the stump of reactor 4, and reactor 3 is no prettier. And they covered it up by putting a contraption over this building. Right, you can see the contraption up there. But if you look at the debris everywhere, right, that I got highlighted for you, and you see the yellow up there, that's the that's the elevator shaft where they would lower cast down through the entire 190-foot building, and there would be a transport truck backed up underneath that, and it would put out 50,000-ton cast of fuel assemblies on top of that. It was a very long, slow process. And so a lot of people think for some reason that that's a pond, right? And that, it was perpetrated that way on purpose by the creepy pro-nuclear community. But when you zoom in on it and you look at the real reality of this equation, there's nothing functional. Like the explosion didn't just destroy the upper part of the building, it drove a lot of fuel deep into the building. So at 87,000 people, there were 98 people were above the 100,000 counts per minute. It was like 500 trillion atoms per kilogram in Tokyo. There was a rain where it was just one rainfall. It was 29.5 million atoms of gamma per square meter. Like Tokyo, 240 kilometers away. To suggest people within a proximity, there was only 98 people with high doses is absurd. There was 865,000 cancers in the first year. There was an enormous increase of heart attacks right away, which is typical what you would expect, unless they actually look for that, right? There was no cases which affected the health. In the first year, there was 806. There was a lot of people who died. There was a mass heart attack event, not only in Japan, but in the United States and Canada, which is where the prevailing winds were carrying this stuff immediately. Just let me bring up. These subjects, you can't rush anything. This is not slam, bam, wham, thank you, buddy boys. Have a nice day. If I get things wrong, then that doesn't help anybody. If I make a Freudian slip, I'm not doing you a favor. I'm doing you a disservice. I'm bringing dishonor to what we do. So, extreme increases of mortality caused by cardiac disease might give the creeps to some people. The numbers were up 12.5% of deaths compared to the same month of the year before. So at 12,700 people just have heart attacks. There was 865,000 extra cancers. On top of that, there was 13,646 out of 38,200 children that had thyroid tumors that were at least 2 centimeters, which happens to be the size of the thyroid of a child. What that means, though, is not just a tumor. It means so much radiation in the thyroid to produce radioactive hormones for the rest of their lives, and particularly their developing life. And then you can expect that to be magnified by orders of magnitude in the species, which are much more vulnerable. And children are the most vulnerable. And there was, later it came out, there was 14,200 open heart surgeries for congenital heart diseases for neonates and infants out of 100,000, 14.2%. 14,200 children needed corrective surgery, and it's done in the form of open heart surgery, which is what we've seen too in Chernobyl, still even today. So when you say there's no cases which affects health, that's offensive and dishonest, as you can imagine. As for workers, the homeless and destitute, and the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language, conducting operations in Fukushima nuclear power plant, the total number of people who are at the level of exposures more than 100 millisieverts. 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 100 millisieverts is 100,000 microsieverts. I'm sorry. It's 1,000 to 1. Hang on here. That's what I was looking for. Hello, everybody. I just forgot to. I want to put a link in the description every night of a new playlist. Boop. And actually, the musician himself, Nucleate, New Lucid, I can't even pronounce what he got there, in the yellow, is the author of it in the comment section. Oh, I didn't bring it up to it. So if you click on that, that'll take you over to the playlist of music, my favorite anti-nuclear music. And I made this yesterday. If you start off with that song, give it a chance and listen to it, and then you're going to want to listen to the next song, which is the song we started off with tonight, and onward and onward. There's just a fraction of his music. And if you're looking for real music to put on your children's phone or to play in your home, or please do that. Please download, please take that link and email it out to everybody. Because this, music is a very powerful. It's a very powerful thing, and we should take advantage of it. Tell people to give it a chance, listen to it, go through each song. Do me a favor, I'm going to keep bugging you. I'm going to ask you about some of the songs, so you better listen to it. Let's get this trending. Let's make this happen. Let's get that out there. We can make a difference just by doing something so simple in music. I got no views on the playlist. Nobody looked at my playlist. No views on my playlist. Wow. They really hate me, eh? It's okay, Nuclear. You can do whatever you want. You're not going to win the battle that we've started. I can tell you that much in the nuclear industry worldwide. We are the revolution. We provide documentation and information that is unassailable and that exposes the industry for its crimes, its perpetual crimes for billions of years. They're committing crimes that will last billions of years. That's worthy of everybody's attention, okay? As for the workers conducting operations in Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Station, the total number of people at levels of exposure of more than 100,000 microsieverts. Think of a microsievert as 750 atoms. Think of an atom that explodes every second for the rest of your life. And think about that your body tries to repair the damage from every atom every second for the rest of your life and tries to build a tumor around each and every atom. Becomes 18 as the three workers. All the people were the subcontractors' employees. So these were not nuclear experts. These are not nuclear academics. These are not from the Los Alamos National Laboratories or Harvard or Yale or Stanford or any nuclear corporations or entities. Or these are the victims of society who don't know. They weren't laying cables in the turbine buildings of Unit 3. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'll just bring up what I mean by that. Well, it's coming up anyway. What am I saying? The turbine buildings are what you're looking at right there. That's the seaside of the reactors. You can see the very top of reactor 4 in the background, and you see the corresponding number on the turbine building. This was the 15th, the morning of the 15th, 16th, who knows for sure when it comes to the industry. This is meant to release, that picture was released by TEPCO, and that was shown in newspapers and TVs worldwide, the Fukushima 50, or at Fukushima, sacrificing it all for you scum. And these reactors need 4,500 tons a minute. Those fire hoses shoot 300 tons a day, 24 hours. This was the carnage after the tsunami, right? It ran right through the building. You can see that's the door in the background there. The tsunami actually ran right through there. And the top of the building was penetrated by fuel assemblies, exploded, ejected from some of the reactors, particularly reactor 3. and also the common spent fuel pool on the other side of the reactors, reactor 4 in particular. Like whoever was shooting was being sacrificed to get these pictures. The water doesn't reach the reactor. It already ejected its reactor cores right out of the building. Now that's reactor 4 right there. You might ask yourself, why is it pixelated? Across the street from it is the common spent fuel pool. Why is that completely pixelated out? And those red containers behind it is where the tsunami washed up transport truck containers and stacked them behind the common spent fuel pool. And the common spent fuel pool had windows down low. It wasn't as tall as the 190-foot buildings, reactors, but they were destroyed too, right? We were laying cables in the turbine buildings of Unit 3. There was no such thing as laying cables in a turbine building of Unit 3. And the problem with this freedom of information, you'll find the links below to these, and including this one, was we never caught them telling the truth a single time. We don't do enough of it, but we try to cover this sometimes. For 2 out of the 3 workers, attachments of radioactive material in the skin of both legs was confirmed. As 2 of the workers, this was pretty wild, by the way, coming up here in a second, was 2 to 6 sieverts on their legs. 3 sieverts is considered a lethal dose, by the way, except for at Fukushima. At Fukushima, you can get the biggest dose in human history, and you were back to work a few hours later. They give you some sake, a pack of smokes, and away you went. As the 2 workers were judged to have a possibility of better burns, they were transferred to the Fukushima Medical University Hospital. That's like a death sentence on its own. March 25th. All 3 of the workers arrived at the National Institute of Radiological Sciences in Chiba Prefecture. That's the very last spot you want to go. As a result of the examination, the levels of exposure of their legs was estimated to be 2 to 6 sieverts per hour. So any bedding, any medical material would have had to been disposed of at a nuclear waste site. The hospital bed would have been thrown away on a nuclear waste site just if they were on it. As a result, the levels were estimated 2 to 6 sieverts. 6 sieverts will melt your organs, for goodness sakes. So if they got that on their leg, that means they're in an environment with dozens or hundreds of sieverts, which means they died, they didn't come out. If you have 6 sieverts on your legs, it means you didn't come out. It didn't happen. And so that story could have been just to look for pity from the media worldwide, and they would have died with those exposures. 6 sieverts will melt your organs in just a few minutes. If it's on your legs, you're a dead man walking, no pun intended. The levels of exposures, both legs and the internal, did not require medical treatment. Really, 6 sieverts. Okay. So they really don't give out degrees in Cracker Jack boxes. But they decided to monitor progress of all 3 workers in the hospital just because, there's only 3 of them, Dana. There's not a single sentence in 4.2 million emails that we've looked at. We never looked at them all. But every one we looked at is just blatant lie after lie after lie. All of them was framing the narrative that the International Atomic Energy Agency is proliferating in the media worldwide today, at least 195 countries. Media and universities and government agencies are regurgitating whatever the traitorous organization, the same structure as Walmart, UN, except it's a military-industrial complex. As for the policemen, there was over 300 policemen died in the first year, just at keeping people out of the communities, keeping robbers out of the communities, which you couldn't do a very good job of. One of the hospitals we know, because there was a few bloggers that went in there, was it Fukushima, I believe, which is south of tied onto the reactor site, and that town was abandoned. So was Yokohama on the other side, and this hospital had over $1 billion worth of equipment stolen from it. And this is a nuclear wasteland like no other we've ever seen. Japan was 36 reactor cores. 36 reactor cores were lost in 5 days. This is why we're seeing an extinction event. And if you go to my playlist, or go into my live streams, I can quantify that fairly quickly with the documentation you're going to see. On March the 24th, examinations of thyroid gland for 66 children aged from 1 to 15 years old were carried out. The result at the level exposures of no problem. It's actually 13,646 in the first year out of 38,200. And it used to be 1 in a million. So 358,000 out of a million, I think it is. Let me just bring that up very quick. Because otherwise, there we go. Should there some numbers were quite even higher, right? I got so much there, I'll just use this one. Plunk. Yeah, 358,000 out of a million when you scale it up. It used to be 1 in a million. So a thyroid tumor of 2 centimeters, where the adult gland is 5 by 3 centimeters. So a 2 centimeter on a child is the same size as their thyroid gland. But like the doses we're talking about are catastrophic anyway. So they're not only producing radioactive hormones now for the rest of their life, they're producing radioactive stem cells too, because you can't have one without the other. Right? You can't have gamma without alphas and neutrons and betas. And this was the French government radioactive fallout based on 13 days. And then this should have been, just let me grab that other one. So I mean, like, when you're trying to tell this story and without the evidence, it's easy to get lost in translation for everybody. But if you give them enough evidence, I'm a firm believer that if I give the evidence, then people are smart enough to work it out. I don't need to sugarcoat it, which of course I'm not capable of anyway. My versions of sugarcoating is not your typical sugarcoating. Let me sugarcoat it for you. So this was a spiked 1 million times normal, over 1 million times normal. This is the French government. It's spiked in the United States and Canada. It's spiked. Now, if you're not familiar with the word spiked means, keep that in mind for everything I'm going to show you. It's spiked. So in other words, it was discovered. It was quantified. You were able to assert it because it was documented. So 1 million to 10 million times of cesium, which is, think of what it was pre-Fukushima, from nuclear weapons and all the nuclear accident, nuclear dump, and all the fuel pools worldwide. I don't know what that number might be, if you're going to be honest. It's pretty high. So let's say it's just 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137, which happens to pulse. Each atom pulses energy 600 feet every second. 600 feet. It'll pulse energy through your neighbor's house, through your house, and radiate everybody in your house and everybody else in the house next door. So if it's in your body, it still has the same energy. A lot of the academics have spent years and years grooming schools and universities to imply that it didn't, but it does. And so it's wrecking your chromosomes, your cells, your genomes, your DNA, your permanent lesions to your organ every second. Your body tries to repair that damage every second from every single one of the atoms. And if, like your hot tub, what you're talking about there, your hot tub would probably be at, say, 7 million atoms of cesium-137 per 1,000 liters. That's being low-balling the numbers. Okay, so think of this as a snowstorm. This is cesium-137 they're talking about, modeled by the French government. So think about the fact that's 10 days. Think of it as a snowstorm that after 20, this is almost 20 days, after 20 days right here, your whole planet is a snowstorm, and the snow never melts and never goes away. Instead, it's anthropogenic man-made radiation that attacks everything with replicating cells, and it never goes away. And you can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it. But it's going to poison everything it comes in proximity to because it pulses energies for 600 feet. Don't worry. I might tell you 500 more times this year. On March 24th, examinations of thyroid glands for 66 children aged from 1 to 15 years old were carried out. Now, I just showed you the other side of that equation, right? It was actually, when you scale it up, it was 358,000 out of a million with catastrophic results already. And this is in the first year. On top of that, not counting this, there was 865,000 cancers. And they stopped releasing that data after that went viral. That went viral. Remember, it was 1 in a million before this. Actually, I get stupid or what? Right there somewhere. So there was also 865,000 cancers in the first year. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. It's not just cancer. There's all kinds of heart problems, liver problems, lung problems. High levels, 150 kilometers away, but there was nobody at the plant got harmed where there's endless amount of nuclear meltdowns. Oh, okay. 36 reactors and 8 fuel pools melted down. They couldn't get rid of, in the first couple of months, this was July of that first year, of 2011. So March was already 1/3 gone. So March, April, May, June, July. 50,000 tons of sediment from the water filtration, water reclamation facilities was so radioactive they couldn't get rid of it. They wanted TEPCO to take it. But they couldn't get rid of the garbage. They couldn't get rid of the ashes from the incinerator. They couldn't get rid of the sewage from the sewage facilities, even the dehydrated stuff, which was typically used for some kind of recycling, which is just terrifying. High levels of radioactivity found extensively. Just the air from the plant is 150 miles away, kilometers away is radioactive areas close to the meltdown. Tokyo is 240 kilometers away or so. Air samples in Tokyo 270 times more contaminated with cesium-137 than the global weapons fallout peak. Yeah, of course it was. You had 36 reactor cores with roughly 1 million pounds each disappeared. So when they tell you they're not finding anybody with any problems, yet the problems showed up, and they knew it was going to show up. These lies never stopped from the industry. I mean, my goodness, you know. It used to be 1 in a million. Now it's 13,646 out of 38,200. And we're talking about actual tumors on the thyroid glands. There's so much evidence. There's too much. There's too much. Because we can cover any facet of this. There's not a single facet, actually, of this story that we haven't challenged because they lied about it. Again and again and again and again. That's why I'm so popular. That's why I got like 16 people on my show. You too, if you work 25 years, you can lead the life of a celebrity like me. 16 people, 17 thumbs up, 18 votes. I'm rocking it again tonight, baby. Hey, could President Trump's temperament raise nuclear use concern? Duh. I think we're all concerned about it, appropriately so. Directive of screening levels for decontamination and radioactivity. This is March the 20th. March the 20th. All of these communities, like if your community gets hit by radioactive fallout from a nuclear meltdown, that's a nuclear wasteland. That's not a difficult return zone. That's a no-go, ever return or go. Or like if you're realistic, if you're an honest person, you're going to call it a nuclear wasteland because That's what that word is meant to describe. And they never stopped growing food there and shipping it worldwide. The food was banned by 55 countries in 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima. See, there's nothing about this story that makes any sense if you trust your government. If you trust the nuclear industry, you're an idiot. They covered this up, and this has catastrophic health implications for every species on the planet. Injuries due to the explosion of Yuta 1 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. 4 employees were injured at the explosion. The smoke of Yuta 1 around the turbine buildings, non-controlled areas of radiation. Listen, you ejected 9 reactor cores out of reactor 3 alone, right out of the building. And where do you think that landed? In the turbine buildings. In the ocean, that whole area where the industry the heartless industry sent people to get pictures so that they can give to the media and look like they actually had something, they were doing something. Injuries due to the explosion of reactor 3. There's reactor 3. There's no injuries, Dana. No, I know. 4 TEPCO employees, 3 subcontractors employees, 4 members of the Self-Defense Force, one of them transported to the National Institute of Radiological Sciences, considering internal possible exposure. How can you breathe the air down there and not have catastrophic internal exposure? How does that work? Where's the science that supports that you can avoid that? You don't need to breathe it in. Your paper suits can't protect you. A 6-foot suit couldn't protect you from the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the alpha shines, the gamma shines. If you listen to the nuclear expert the media is putting up on a pedestal, especially on YouTube, then you're completely incompetent. I don't mean that as an attack. I mean that you don't have metrics that are realistic to apply to your logics. Right? You can't extrapolate anything useful by using those metrics from the popular YouTubers. Right? If you're popular on YouTube on nuclear with millions of views, or even hundreds of thousands, or even tens of thousands, then you don't know what you're talking about. You are not getting no traction if you're an honest and sincere and informative and educational person. It's never going to happen. You are ostracized from all the big social anti-reality medias. No internal exposures. The member was discharged and sent home to die, because that's what happened. If he died, and there was no autopsy when he did die, wasn't buried in a graveyard, he was incinerated. March the 15th, Prime Minister directed in-house stay to the residents in areas 20 to 30 kilometers. Yeah. On March the 15th is the day after that. That's 9 reactor cores. 2 days before that, 9 more reactor cores were released out of Unit 1. Because the fuel pools at the top of these reactors, 190-foot, 65-meter, 19-story buildings, have 3 decades plus of reactor cores. Now, all these reactor cores are different sizes, but they're all very old. So they have decades of reactor cores. There's no such thing as a small of these types of reactors, by the way. It was one of the most powerful reactors, the 6 reactors on this site. It was one of the most powerful, not the most powerful. One of, the Niigata nuclear plant was the most powerful one on the west side of Japan, in the Sea of Japan, facing Russia and that. March the 15th, Prime Minister directed in-house stay to the residents in the area 20 to 30 kilometers. And then this is what they were doing to try to get it under control. They were spraying a couple of hoses. Look at the hose over there spraying. It's like they added it in with Photoshop or something. Oh, look, there's they got a little rainbow there. So you gotta get your selfie taken. Now they're on the corner of the turbine building, so to speak. this is futile. You're in lethal doses right there. There's nothing to be gained from that. Now the hoses are raised up. Look at this, right? Isn't that interesting? Let me come backwards. So you can see that the bottom hose is pretty low. It's just because that's from a truck, right? And they're raising it up. Now they go in there for 1 hour or something like that, and they do this till they got no water left. Then they run away again. But again, the water can't reach the reactors. Whoever's doing it most likely died. Like the destruction is really next level. Same thing with reactor 4, the basement reactor 4. Now, you see the pillars of, like you see where the frame is missing, so to speak, right? There's still a frame there. Those frames, you can put an SUV on that and turn it around. That's how big they actually are. That's actually 150 feet wide. It's a 19-story, 190-foot tall building. Very deceptive when you're looking at this because you don't have much to give it context, right? You look at that car there, look at and it should, like your camera should be very blurry. Now this is probably taken with a zoom shot from a long way away on top of that. It's very low quality. Again, I don't remember where this is to, unfortunately. Well, that's the administration building up right there. That's reactor 1 over there. So, yeah, that's the administration building? No, this is the dry storage, right, where they put the cast down by the ocean. That's behind it. And it's a dry cast, so they did go into the building. You can see it full of seaweed and everything else. So there's nothing functional left of these buildings. When you're looking at these pictures, that's the only takeaway you're going to get is there's nothing functional in these buildings. The tsunami went through the buildings. Electronics are wiped out. All the infrastructure is permanently disabled / destroyed. Right, so this building was filled with water. This was the dry cast storage building for sure, this one. So were the other ones, by the way. So this is the turbine building side. You're down by the ocean. And these are only shooting 300 tons of water a day. This is not going to change anything. You're just going to spray radiation everywhere by hitting it with these high-powered hoses. If you do have success, you're just going to spread fuel everywhere. So lethal doses everywhere. It's the opposite of how you should put out that kind of fire. It should be put out. Well, how do you really do it? You don't have a containment to get rid of the oxygen. It doesn't need, by the way, nuclear doesn't need oxygen to burn. The reactors are underwater. You can have a chain reaction at the bottom of the ocean for thousands of years. You'll never know what's happening because you can't see it. But it doesn't need oxygen to burn. That's what's incredible about this. It's the wrong technology for planet Earth because there's not a species on the planet that has an autoimmune trigger that can defend against it. Kevin Blanche has got to go back in and get his pacemaker worked on. That's a scary thing to hear. So again, you see the truck is putting up its hose. Right now the hose is coming down. These were pictures released by TEPCO. Now the hose is kind of pointing at reactor 3. That's reactor 3. You can see barely see it, but that's the shape of reactor 3 for sure. I'm looking at it up there. And here you go again. Now, whoever took that shot is getting full-body neutron bombardments, alpha shine, gamma shines, and everything else. So whoever got that job to go in there and take a picture, whoever's there working with the fire trucks, they're considered expendable. These are not academics. There are no academics on that site in the nuclear industry. We've never had one actually come out and talk about this ever in 15 years. There was 16,000 of the people, right? People are dying there. And we know people are dying there. by the actions that we have seen. Let me explain what I mean by that right quick. So when you see a story, there's quite a few stories like this. When you see a story like this, 16,000 workers quit. They didn't quit; they ran away. There was 1,100 U.S. dollars budgeted for every person that's working there. Now most of them got less than $11 an hour, and they had to pay for shelter and food at the nuclear wasteland and transportation. They were robbed of all because they were expected to die, right? We know there was just one story of over 800 urns were dropped off at a monastery with a large donation. And they were former workers, so-called workers, which, have you ever heard of a nuclear worker in a company that worked at Fukushima after the nuclear meltdowns? No. They didn't send in the fire department from nuclear plants across Japan, which had 54 reactors. The fire department across Japan didn't volunteer to go work at Fukushima. And you couldn't have paid them enough money. The entire nuclear core ejected into the environment means it's non-survivable. You will die in that environment. Your organs are going to melt. You are going to get lethal doses. And whether you die in minutes, hours, days, or weeks, it won't be much longer than that. A week, rather. The entire nuclear core injected into an environment. It was not only the entire nuclear core injected into the environment, it was 3 decades of reactor cores that were stored at the top of the buildings. They're terrible people. The nuclear industry is just the worst humans conceivable. And I mean that sincerely. They're the worst humans imaginable. It's reactor 1, reactor 2. Now reactor 2 liquefied, went China syndrome, deep into the earth. The earth, we know, broke open around the building in 6 places where the steam coming out of the ground and the permanent Geiger counters there were shown 10 sieverts per hour, where they have to leave the site because of the accumulation of the radioactive steam coming out of the earth from the chain reaction of China syndrome in the earth. This is in front of the turbine buildings, Oceanside. And this is a victim of the nuclear industry. He would have died that day most likely. Those masks cannot filter, right, for these types of particulates. And a lot of the particulates are splitting atoms on their own because the fuel was particulated, atomized in aerosol, ionized and radiated, everything that comes in contact on top of that with that particular material. So when it's spread over your country, if it's in your forest, your leaves are becoming radioactive, and when they fall off and wash into the cycle of life, it radiates everything that comes in proximity to, which is the biota and the fungus and the bacteria. So these people, lifespan is considered short periods, that day basically. So the rising waters, the tsunami come in, because these are pressurized, or these vessels, right, collapses the vessels. Now you're only talking there about around 14.6 pounds per square inch. But I remember some of the alleged anti-nuclear bloggers back in the day used to attack me and say that wasn't real, that wasn't Fukushima, just to attack me, right? But it was. That's the kind of power that came in there. And that's just up this way towards over there, a little ways, is the dry storage, which we know a lot of those casts were washed out to sea. So this is a good telling story here. That's the administration building up high on the mountainside of the reactors. The explosion blew all the windows out of it, these buildings, right? So whoever got this job is not a nuclear academic. They're somebody that was jacked off the streets of Tokyo, put in a paper suit, and given a camera and said, I'm going to give you $3,000 this afternoon. And I got to work for 2 hours. And then they come up with an excuse not to give you the money that night, and you were dead the next morning. You didn't wake up. So water penetrated the buildings on top of that. Look at that rock. And so do you really think, if the water could bring the rock to there, what's the odds that the water didn't have enough force to permeate every facet of that building? There was landslides all over the sites, which prohibited equipment being able, not only equipment, but, getting out of there with your vehicles. The only way it was to walk out. And there was thousands of people there who had to do exactly that. But it's evidence of the earthquake at the site itself is all I'm showing you that for. See cars pushed up, stacked up from the tsunami. You see chunks missing out of the road. And you can see people stood up. This to me is, I have a hard time accepting there's people there. Well, I know they did kill a lot of people this way. You walk over there, look, keep going over. I'll put up my hand. There was somebody on from the International Atomic Energy Agency talking in their ear from Geneva. Say, tell that guy to keep walking. And he's like, keep walking. Now when he drops dead, that's where the bulldozer comes in. There's a few of these pictures where it looks like there's people there. But see, that doesn't, where his feet are to, that doesn't look real to me. I know it's grainy, and that's why, there's stuff there all stuff there is grainy, absolutely. But there's definition there, but we're not seeing that in a yellow, of all things. We should see definition, see? That's two people, allegedly. Now, I'm zoomed in on these pictures, and these people are walking around, scratching their ears in their oilskins and jumpers, which is, you just had a nuclear reactor eject. You had 4 reactors eject their inventories out of the buildings, and people in there wandering around. I can't accept that, unless they died 15, 20 minutes later. None of the pictures, when I zoomed in on them, I was pretty convinced that there was too many pieces missing of it. It must have been a green screen. I happen to be quite good at green screens for a very long time now. And so I know the signatures. I know what I'm trying to key in or key out. I'm very familiar. I've made just thousands and thousands and thousands of stories where I've used the green screen to help articulate a certain point. So I'm very familiar with how to use the green screen. I know a few things about it. I know Superman's not real and Wonder Woman's not real. I know that heralds are created so that your parents and your friends and your families and yourselves can't be your family's heroes. You could hero, there's so many ways, right, that they have displaced the parents' ability to have equation. It's anyway, if you're here, don't forget to click that button. That's right. E equals MC squared, except for everywhere. Except when there's an accident. E doesn't equal MC squared when there's an accident. Only when they're trying to get money from the government. You see that mangled car? This is on the other side of the turbine building. There's nobody in the turbine. See the guy in the paper suit? I don't doubt there's people in paper suits that are walking in there, but I doubt highly they survived that afternoon, that they were alive at the end of the day. And here's the worst job you can get in the nuclear industry. When someone gives you a paper suit, tapes up your wrists, and he doesn't even have his feet taped up, and gives you this little clickety device and tells you to go over there and this other guy take the camera and go take pictures. You know how to use a camera? Oh, well, you got to push on this button and wait and look at the screen. When you see the picture show up, then you can take another picture. Okay, there's an extra $1,000 for you. You do a good job. Okay, boss, we do a good job. So whoever got this job, they died that day for sure. And lo and behold, you're only finding millisieverts, are you? That's all you're finding is millisieverts. We got 36 reactor cores detonate. I always do this with your Geiger counter. Like, by the way, why the Geiger counter is working that way, and they know what's happening, is that when you take that Geiger counter into a nuclear wasteland, the first number is really high. And they don't know the difference. And they took pictures of it, but you'll never see those pictures. And now the Geiger counter is broken. It needs to be sent back to the factory to be recalibrated. And you send that back to the factory in the mail, which is typically how it's done. The intelligence agencies are going to come knocking on your door, so to speak, because you set off every detection device on the planet. So it won't make it to the factory, right? When it's used in a nuclear wasteland, it is non-fixable. It can't be recalibrated. And whoever got the first job of putting a circle there is dead. And whoever got this job of walking over there with the Geiger counter, he's dead too. And you be sure as shit that the International Atomic Energy Agency. Now the problem with this picture is it's so clean. It's such a perfect, beautiful picture. This is 2011. On top of that, it makes me think they're not even at that site. Now this guy, with his baggy pants on, his paper suit, he's spraying a reagent that binds with the fuel particulates to try to get the airborne numbers down. And what I mean by that is the fuel particulates, each of them are splitting atoms all day for millions of years. Because you detonated 36 reactor cores. The particulates from the reactor core, the fuel itself, is going to be splitting atoms for millions of years. And some of that made it to North America. A lot of it made it to North America. And some of it is documented, but with the wrong isotope. There was like 20 million atoms of iodine-129 per liter of rainfall. Like the biggest byproduct of radioactive fuel rod is curium isotopes, which needs lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium. And the industry likes, I bring up the story right now, one of the first couple of stories. There's quite a few stories came out originally where, yeah, there's plutonium, but it's really heavy and it's not going to travel very far. All atoms are the same size. And so a lot of people fall for those the so-called scientists. There's so many scientists that goes to university to get a job that their parents told them about. Go get a really good education, and you'll get a job going with the medias and public speakers for the government. And your job is to just come out and lie to people. But you need a big education to wow the audience with. And then anybody that got something to say, then the trolls will usually get in, well, what's your education? What's your education? What's his education? Oh, he went to this place, or he went to that place. Our guy went to MIT or Harvard or Yale or Stanford or Oxford or some of the biggest shakers and movers on the planet. This guy died that afternoon or that morning. And you're going in there spraying a reagent that binds with it to try to get the numbers down, wearing a paper suit of all things, secondhand gloves, in a nuclear wasteland. That means you're disposable. That's how the industry is using you, as somebody that's disposable. There's not even a nuclear student on the planet would ever dream of getting into a paper suit and going there, let alone that job. Right? They identified large numbers of radiation by the previous homeless they sacrificed, and then their response for the International Atomic Energy Agency, when they got back to them with an email, was, spray this reagent, we're going to send it your way. Spray that everywhere, and that's a no-go zone, and that'll keep the numbers down. So like you're wandering around, spraying this region with a hose, a very low pressure hose. See Buddy in the background. See Buddy walking over there. In paper suits, no less. It means you have no concept what a nuclear site is. Nothing. You have no concept that there's danger in every step you're taking. There's a landmine everywhere you're walking. That is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. They died, for sure, that day. And look at them huddled up in the back corner. Radiation covered that entire site with radioactive fallout. That entire site. With fuel particulates and fuel pellets and fuel assemblies landed all over that site from 36 reactor cores. So this would be on the extreme side of the site, but even that obviously can't be possibly even conceivably safe. And all the mud you're looking at is from the tsunami, all the stuff on the ground. That should be pavement, right? That's mud from the sediment. And so look, they got a dotted line drawn there. I dare you to cross the dotted line. I'll give you $1,000 if you cross that. There's lots of guys with tattoos were saying that. And look, the dotted line right here goes all the way down. Breaks my heart when I see this stuff, eh? But sadly, there's even worse jobs. I don't know sometimes. That's pretty bad. That's definitely a job you don't want to... You don't want that job. You don't want to be the guy that walks out there and gets a picture with a broken Geiger counter. 2.8 millisieverts, is an insult to anybody with intelligence. So, if you're asking the boss for extra breaks, then you got sent on this job here, huh? And the minute you complained that you weren't feeling good, or you had a nosebleed, or because everybody gets a nosebleed there, then you get this job right there. Because you're not coming back to the shelter that night or ever. What's to be gained by doing this? Get a tsunami run through the site, for goodness sakes. Yeah, get that guy over there with the yellow hat and the red boots to squat down and point at it. I see everybody at the IAEA Geneva slapping hands, high-fiving each other. Keep a camera on that guy for the rest of the day. We want to see him wither and fall. There's some sick people on this planet, and there's an awful lot of them works for the nuclear industry, I can tell you that much. The worst serial killers on the planet works for the nuclear industry. Kill you with radioactive fallout just because it was fun. Yeah, pick it up. What? Yeah, pick it up. I give you $1,000, $3,000 if you pick it up. I can see a couple of homeless fighting with each other and running over and grabbing it and picking it up. Woo! Some sake tonight, baby. Yeah, maybe, but that'll be your last night. When you see this at a nuclear meltdown site, it means they hate that person's guts. And most likely influenced by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Nobody else could be this cruel. Like, you really did have an event. This was an event. It's an extinction event on top of that for the species worldwide. That's the scariest pictures anybody will ever see on this planet. TEPCO reported to NISA, which is the Japanese Nuclear Industry Safety Association, the event unusually increased the radiation site at the doses at the site boundaries. At the boundaries. at the boundaries. The boundaries. They actually picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radioactive fallout across the country. 30 million. 30 million one-ton bags across the country. I'm sorry, just across the prefecture. That's enough for 6 rows of traffic of one-ton trucks right around the entire planet, over and over 6 times. TEPCO reported in this the event unusually increased radiations at the site. TEPCO, which shouldn't exist, TEPCO was nationalized right away. TEPCO went bankrupt right away. TEPCO was continued so that you can blame TEPCO, not the nuclear industry, not the World Nuclear Associations, not the lobbying groups worldwide that allowed all of this to take place. That reactor should have never been built on a fault line. You had 4 reactors melting down at the one time. March the 18th, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, and Science decided to reinforce the nationwide monitoring survey. Really, the Minister of Education, Culture, we don't see any connotations of the nuclear corporations worldwide participating in any of the narratives. All the experts were usually the usual trolls from the nuclear industry. March the 15th, March the 18th. Well, this is what March the 15th looked like, by the way. That's March the 15th. She's pretty, eh? You had 8 reactor pools, fuel pools, in 4 buildings. So there's 2 pools at the top of each building. And each reactor is close to 1 million pounds. And there was around 36 reactor cores. They produce 5.25 reactor cores every decade. They don't have a repository to store it anywhere. And so if you downplay it to half of what should be there, it's around 30 to 36 million pounds were lost. How many pounds were in the atomic bomb again? I can't remember. March 18, TEPCO reported to NISA on the accident failures unit 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wow. They acknowledged reactor 4. Not going to go to no little G.I. Joe badges for that one. Reactor 4 was never admitted to having any loss of inventories. I got a better picture of this somewhere. So, Nano's a small modular reactor company. Like Canada was put on a pedestal in a lot of media today as the small modular reactor hype train, right? Now, officially it's supposed to look like that, but it's actually a 24-story building, 240 feet tall. 12 stories of it will be underground. But the picture they're rolling out is that bizarre looking, looks like an upside down ice cream pail, right? But it's actually a 24-story building. That's what the Canadian small modular reactor is going to be. The Russians is about 15 stories above the ocean and 3, 4, 5 stories below it on a football-sized field barge. That's a small modular reactor according to Russia. And China's new one is a massive, huge infrastructure. Leakage. Leakage. I don't know. Does he think anything got out of that? Did anything get out of that reactor 4? Was there leakage at that building, I wonder? Is that why we call it leakage now? And that's unforgivable. The nuclear industry uses that word. It's unforgivable. Of the radioactive material inside the reactor buildings, like if it was inside the buildings, only because it fell back down to Earth there. All 4 buildings have lost their entire inventories, which was around 36 reactor cores. Japan's Atomic Power Company reported to NISA accidents and failures in Tokai nuclear power station, failure of seawater pumps, motor of the emergency diesel generator. And Tokai is right here. which is not that far from Fukushima, which is that way, south. That's north and that's south. There's a fault line runs straight through Nagata all the way down to here, by the way, east to west, and there's off the coastline, which ruptured, was a 4,000-year-old fault line from Niigata up there down towards Fukushima. It ruptured January 1st, 2024, right, in Noto, Ishikawa Prefecture, the Noto Peninsula. That was a brutal event. March the 19th, Temple reported an incident of pumps for Unit 5 started up and started cooling spent fuel pool number 5 at Fukushima. They're talking about in that story. We never hear very much of reactor 5 and 6. Now, you remember I showed you that picture of the common spent fuel pool being completely pixelated out earlier. Just bear with me. Bring in these pictures of reactor 5 and 6. These were released in 2021 with no explanation. I'm the only person I know that ever covered it. So when you start heading towards reactor 5 and 6, or up in the corner, which is north, that building you're seeing there on the shoreline is the storage pool, or the dry cast storage facility. We had inside pictures of that. And there's that tank. You're heading towards reactor 5 and 6, which are up in the top corner. You can see the pixelation starting to show up. See the damage to the infrastructure in front of it? And it's supposed to be over there now. Here we go. I went backwards. So reactor 6, this is reactor 5, and that's the turbine building. And that's reactor 6, which is completely pixelated out, including the stack and in between the buildings, and the turbine building. They're all pixelated out. Why did they release those pictures 10 years later? How come I'm the only person on the planet that has ever covered it? I've done a video on these pictures. There's 736 of them. The video is called Mystery 736 Pictures. You'll find it. I think it's in my playlist area too. So if you put in Mystery 736, the numerals, pictures, you'll find that video. It's a very important video, by the way. We've done it a couple of times on this particular channel. We've done it on the other channel, what they took down on me when I was out doing research expeditions on spiders. So why is reactor 6, the stack, the buildings, in between the buildings, and the turbine building completely pixelated out? Why is that so? Right, that's a very important question that we never got an answer to. March the 20th. Well, this is March the 20th right there of the plume. It's now almost all of the United States and a huge percentage of the Pacific and some of Canada is completely coated in 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137. This is March the 21st, the next day. This is March the 24th, a couple of days later than March the 20th. So you see March the 21st. This is March the 21st of... This was a study based on a spike of cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. So March the 20th, these communities should have been long gone, because if you contaminated all of North America by the 24th, these communities were buried in brutal radioactive fallout because they're basically anywhere in Japan is ground zero. Terrible people in this industry. NISA directed orally to TEPCO regarding the exposures of workers in the turbine buildings of Unit 3. There was no one in turbine building of Reactor 3, for goodness sakes. If they did, they died. They didn't come back out. They're still there today. Nobody can go get them. That's Reactor 3. And there's the turbine building being buried in 8-9 reactor cores. One of them a plutonium mixed oxide reactor, which is the reason it was such a vicious explosion, by the way. Well, March the 25th, this is the plumes covering almost the entire planet now. So how bad is it going to be at ground zero, which is Japan? And South Korea, North Korea, Russia, coastline, China. It's going to be like, they're suggesting there that like Canada, United States are buried. And this plume, within 30 days, covers the entire planet. It doesn't go away ever. And remember, the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod is not the cesium-137, which is brutal. It's the curium isotopes. And curium isotope, you need lead shielded 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Plutonium killed all the animals in the U.S. Navy's Research Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Loveless Respiratory Research Institute. If you look up Dr. Raymond Gilmeddy's studies on beagle dogs and beagle puppies. Exposure of residents, including the about 60 evacuees from Footabar Public Welfare Hospital. They were left there for like 5 days or something. As the result of measurements of 133 people at center, 23 people counted more than 113,000 counts per minute. Well, the Geiger counters they were using, the people that were using them didn't know what they were doing. They were looking for just a gamma only, maybe at best. They weren't measuring the enormity of it. If you got that much of any isotope, you got that much or more of many other isotopes on each of them. So they sacrificed these people, their health, because they're at the welfare hospital. So who cares about them, right? When you're talking about the nuclear industry, they don't care about anybody, but they care least about these victims. Without measuring the shoes, as if it was on their feet only. You're breathing it in, see? You know, it's 24 days. So imagine what Japan is like. 5 out of 162 people examined were transported. But these Freedom of Information files, what they do tell us is that this industry is incompatible with humanity. That they're a threat just because they believe in covering up every facet of everything they do. Their entire legacy is predicated upon this deceit and deception and dishonesty. Their entire history is that. Yeah. As a result of screening of 60 firefighting personnel involved in transportation activities, the radioactivity which were from like Osaka, from Tokyo, people who didn't know anything about nuclear. The firefighters. Now, there's no nuclear firefighters. If you learn to fight nuclear fires, you'll quit your job the next day. Forever. You're never going back. It's a despicable industry. It's a despicable people in this industry. They're despicable people. They're the lowest forms of life imaginable. They're just worthless humans. They're just revolting parasites. What's the point of nuclear weapons? You can't use them. So why keep making them? Because the industry is despicable. Because the releases from it is guaranteed an extermination of every species on the planet, ultimately. They're revolting parasites. That's the only way to describe this industry. That's the appropriate way to describe this industry. Revolting parasites, everybody in it. If you're working in the industry and you know better, you're not naive, you're not gullible, you're a monster. You're a sadistic, twisted, and demented, heartless, spineless, soulless creep. You go back into my live streams, you'll see these thumbnails. These are whales from the last year all over the world showing up in last stage starvation. These are the biggest whales. The blue whale should weigh as much as 10 transport trucks, 400,000 pounds. If you're stood on the other side of it, you can see your knees because there's only skeleton and organs and skin there. They're not anemiated. They don't have any. If they died at sea, they would have sank right away. The bronze whale should weigh 1,800 pounds right here. It maybe weighs 1,800 pounds. Let's say it weighs 2,500 pounds because it's a big animal, and it's bones, right, and organs. But even then, I've never seen it. This was 3 months ago or so. That one up there was about a month and a half ago. The bronze whale up there. That's absurdly emaciated. Just that on its own, which should be around 80,000, 90,000 pounds, is terrifying. But to see him actually showing up like this, showing up like that, we are in a whole different Twilight Zone. This is Twilight Zone stuff. So they'll be gone in a year or two, all of them. This is all species. I mean, let me go back for 1 second there. No. This is a sperm whale. Look at the rib cage sticking. The body is deflated so much, right? There's no fat, there's no muscle, there's no blubber. The skin doesn't have anything, any nutrients left in it, nutrition left into it. The skin is actually just enveloped the rib cage. Like that blue whale up there should weigh 400,000 pounds. That's a fin whale over there. That's the second biggest whale on the planet. That's close to 100 feet too. There's nothing there. We've never seen this. And nobody's worried about it. Everybody's trying to call it a ship strike in your medias and your marine biologists and everybody else. Your authorities, your universities are all describing these as ship strikes. These are death stage starvation. It's emaciation and it's worse. Emaciation that we've never expected, that we never conceived was possible for these animals. This would have took several years. And nobody thought they can live that long without food. But because the ocean keeps them buoyant, I guess, that's the only reason they were lasted to these incredible stages. If this doesn't move you, what does? If this is not a concern to you, no matter who you are, do you think if you're rich or you're famous, that you're going to be exempt from these effects, your loved ones and everybody else? Guess again, you have to fight back. You have no choice. You have to get educated at least so you can extrapolate and make decisions based upon facts, not upon the propaganda that you're being fed at an enormous rate everywhere you look. Go to my playlist and watch the three videos in Harvard, Stanford, and Yale, is it? No, Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. We took their original presentations after Fukushima, and we audited them to see for honesty. And so the videos are 3 to 4 hours long each for a half an hour, 40-minute presentation because they lied nonstop the entire time. And so we needed to challenge these lies, not assertions, but lies, with documentation so that hopefully some people will make the moral and ethical choice that this industry, the world needs people to stand up to this industry. You haven't got an option. You do not have a choice. because you are going to lose all your species and then your loved ones right behind it. And you're going to lose this one opportunity because AI within a year or two is going to be silencing, well, it's already doing it now, certainly to me, but it's going to silence any descending voices at all. The top of the building, that's a depiction of Reactor 4, or any of the reactors in Japan, and 70 reactors in the United States are identical, where the two top red ones are the fuel pools, because you don't have a repository. They were stuffed. Beyond capacity, by the way. They changed the laws just so they can do that. And this is the reactor core. It's also at the top of the buildings. There is no building. There's a stump. That's Reactor 3. And they've done the same thing for Reactor 4. It's gone too. That was a video where it makes more sense when the video is playing, but let me go back a little bit. So in the media, I'm going to play this clip of the media claiming they're at Reactor 4. This is a bunch of different medias. It'll get better once it starts playing the video.
What I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
But outside of that reactor, they're not at the top of the reactor buildings. The reactor buildings don't exist. They can't be at the top of it, right? So Nano is targeting Argentina now with small modular reactors, so to speak. Am I to? There I am. James trying to draw some attention to it. And because it's such an important subject, he only got 16 views. Nuclear Argentina. So it's a story about, there's a link below it. Well, actually, we can play the song a little bit in the background.
On the radio, reactor jobs on the TV, a national cause, small modular, big applause, but Jupiter knows what follows all that. Uranium under the mist at the floor, tailings still there from before, 65 million tons and growing, and they still say
it's about this story right there.
Patagonia knows this move when the capital wants it kept far.
Let's listen to it for a little bit.
Yellow cake talk, export demand, always the South, always this land. Morning table, otra vez. You say tomorrow, we hear the waste. 65 million tons already there, still here. Old uranium waste, and still you come this year. You call it clean, why all that waste? You call it progress, why bring it here? Nuclear Argentina, no se vende, no. Nuclear Argentina, don't bring that to our home. Uranium country, already knows old waste still here from years ago. Not for the river, not for you, but nuclear Argentina. We know what comes with this. They say AI, they say power parks, they say bright rooms lit after dark. They say the North will rise on this, then why this always lands down here? Mine, mouth, mill, waste, haul, road, pit, Nobody here is asking for it. They want the ore, they want the route. Then leave the tailings with the south. Trello hears the promise pass through kitchen tile and window glass. Dogs in the yard, cups in the sink. People hear more than what you think. No, this is not a first time thing. The waste hills there have lasted years. And every time they say advance, the river answers with the past. 65 million tons already, they're still here. Old uranium waste, and still you come this year. You call it clean, why all that waste? You call it progress, why bring it here? They say clean, we say waste. They say future, same old place. 65 million tons still on the land, and now they come back with another plan. They want uranium, they want one more round. They want Patagonia to carry it now. Not for the river, not for you, but we know this move, we know this push. Nuclear Argentina, no se vende, no. Nuclear Argentina, don't bring that to our home. Uranium country, already knows old waste still here from years ago. Not for the river, not for you, but nuclear Argentina. We know what comes with this. Nuclear Argentina, no se vende, no.
It's fantastic. They want to use that nuclear waste to make radioactive drugs. And as nano-nuclear Argentina is going into nuclear Argentina, if you read that story below it, is nano-nuclear. Nano wants to put a reactor on the moon too, right? It's the same company. U.S. firm to invest $230 million plus in Argentine's nuclear disease factory. Nano-nuclear energy. Everybody who invested in them lost all their money. Not all of it, most of their money, right? 35-40% of their money, I should say, at least, was lost 2 weeks after they invested in it. They do this scam with the stock markets over and over and over. They don't have a product. Why buy stocks with them? Now they say, we're going to put one on the moon. That'll drive their stocks back up tomorrow morning, right? That story just came out today, this evening. U.S.-based nano-nuclear energy, and they like to say this is an expert on small modular reactors, which is absurd because they don't have a reactor. If there's such a thing as a small modular reactor, why are they building the massive ones? Like the Canadian one is considered the icon of the nuclear industry for small modular reactors. It's a 24-story building, for goodness sakes. So they don't have it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be building the Canadian small modular reactor versions, which are gigantic, bigger than Fukushima reactors. Canada's talking about enriching uranium. NATO just came back from their symposium concluded in Istanbul in Turkey. Look at 150 nuclear experts, 150 nuclear scumbags. Look at, see that small girl in front? She looks like death to me. And we know. Where's Rudy too? He wasn't there. Mark Rudy. I'm zooming in and I'm just trying to glean some insight from looking at these people. I got a tendency to do it, whether I can or not. I'm actually pretty good at gleaning insights on stuff like this. Very quickly, I've been pretty accurate as long as I can remember now. And when you look at these people, they're not normal. They live in this bizarre world. And it's even worse because NATO's involved. NATO was created in response to the former Soviet Union. So NATO shouldn't even exist. Once the Soviet Union was dissolved, along with everybody's pensions and patents, which is a rotten thing to do to a country. Right, once you took that path, the NATO should have been dissolved. They were a response to Meltdown Queen. Bring together 150 experts from across the alliance, which is 30 countries, which is what NATO is. As well as 30 militaries. If you look up NATO, let's do it for kicks, eh? Haven't done nothing daring in a long time. Where the hell am I? Oh, I'm right here. Let's put in NATO and see what I get here. I'm not sure what the search engine on this one. But typically you'll get NATO 30 militaries. Oh, screwed that up today. Oh. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Typically, though, when I look it up, it'll say 30 militaries. Intergovernmental military alliance between 32 member states. So NATO is now 32 militaries. Military. They sweetened it up a little bit, did they? Intergovernmental, 32 government militaries is what it is, right? It's a military alliance. A legion, whatever you want to call it. It's a gang of military. North Atlantic Treaty Organization was created in response to the Soviet Union. It has nuclear. They're down there doing a symposium on nuclear. Right, that's what that's all. That gathering of the crazies is a nuclear symposium. NATO's not about nuclear. It's only about nuclear weapons. Right? Its only connotation when it comes to nuclear, NATO is nuclear weapons because it's 32 militaries. They have aircraft carriers. They have an army. The jet fighters. They have it all. And nuclear, chemical, biological weapons. And they're kind of like the useful idiot for UN, which is a horrific organization, a terrifying organization that has now assaulted every species and every human on this planet, and is doing everything they can at a hyper pace to control the entire population of the planet. They're obsessed with it. They always have been, and that's what they attract, right? Is the chicken eggs. The weirdos from the universities, to enrich or not to enrich nuclear fuel in Canada's dilemma. No, it's not a Canada dilemma. We don't need a dilemma. There's only nuclear industry. This is the Great Lakes, it's the third biggest, part of the third biggest aquifer of fresh water on the entire planet, and it's saturated with Canadian reactors and American reactors. It's completely contaminated. They're the worst humans imaginable. And now, of course, wants to have a reactor on the moon by 2030. We hear this all the time. James Walker, CEO, Nano. He's just trying to drive his stocks up. They haven't even got a reactor. How are they going to put one on the moon? Right, you just got a bump right from the other story that James had linked up. And they put out this story now. We're going to put one on the moon too. You better buy stocks. Buy them now. We just got a big payday yesterday. They're insane. And we put 150 of it from 32 countries together in one room. If the flies weren't all killed off by the radioactive fire from Japan, it would be covered in fucking flies, every one of them. Vietnam's racing to go nuclear. And the villagers is the same as Did I Sell Secrets to Pakistan? Book, an article, and a song that James produced. We're going to close out with in a little tiny bit. As towns and villages across Vietnam lined their streets with Lunar New Year's decorations, including spring flowers, red-lettered banners, in Vinh Tong, celebrations were sparse. No new furniture was brought. No house renovations or repainting was allowed. And most men in the village, unemployed, local, had little reason to cheer. And Bei Sang said the spotted Babylon snail farms, which were once their main source of income, are now being dismantled one by one because the government has designated their village as the site of the country's first nuclear power plant. So they're going to relocate 477 households 5 kilometers north of the future nuclear wasteland. In 2009, the National Assembly approved plans for the country's first 2 nuclear plants, and Vinh Tong, the same city, community, was one of the chosen sites, but the plan was never built, but they destroyed the community in preparations. Life was hard during those years. We were not allowed to do anything. No investments into the village were permitted. No new farms could be built. Failing roads were left unfixed. Fast track of nuclear, Vietnam. Okay, that's about it. Let me delete everything, because the big black hole is coming right at us again. I'm not so sure I'll be back tomorrow night. I'm just totally burnt out, eh? I'm going to try to, but it's debatable. I had a long day. Let's put it that way. Rough day. Just bear with me here. Just trying to get back on track. Get up to where at least I left off, because when I delete stuff, then you got to keep your eye on Japan, because Japan's got the Eurasian plate, the North American plate, and the Pacific plate all meeting and going right through Japan. And then they hit that earthquake a few days ago on the 18th, and then on the 20th, like 36 hours later, it ruptured up on the north side here. Where they had a tsunami warning. That was really something strange, eh? The media still out there publishing videos as if the tsunami wiped out that whole coastline. All the major media are out there with live streams on YouTube every day since. Why are they doing that? With false pictures. They're using pictures from Shika and Ishikawa and stuff like this. Why are they doing that? They're trying to desensitize people, maybe? I don't know. It's pretty weird to see them doing it. So I guess they're planning on covering up any nuclear event that might happen. That's that orange-brown up there with the X. That's that 8.4 earthquake on the international scale. That's Opera 5 on the Shindu scale, which only goes to 7. Which, say if you divide 7 into the Richter scale, which is 10, you got 1.428, 1.43. Multiplied by upper, because in the Japan scale of 1 to 7, it's 1, 1.52, 2.53, 3.54, etc. So an upper 5, say a 5.9 on the international scale, multiply it by 1.428 is 8.4. And that earthquake was caused by a fault line, the Eurasian plate, North American plate, is where it just dips below the screen, that dotted line, is Nagano, which is where they just had a major earthquake, and then another one up the coastline. And see the orange? That orange up there was a 7.5, but there was no damage. Right? 5 is a lower 5, so it's a 7.5 or something on the Richter scale, all the yellow. There's no damage there. I've never seen that before. But what's even crazier is this is on land, and there was no damage. And now we got all the media out there pumping the tsunami as live streaming as if it was happening right now for several days is just bizarre. But because you had the tectonic plates of the Eurasian North Pacific tectonic plates ruptured, and you had the Pacific plate rupture, which is up there to 70 kilometers off the coastline, runs all the way off Fukushima, right? And that the Eurasian plate, that's been dormant for 3,000 to 4,000 years, so say 3,500 years. That ruptured January 1st, 2024. And that was the epicenter, Suzu, Ishikawa Prefecture. It was 1,500 landslides, for instance. There was 1,500 aftershocks or so. There's communities there where they never got into, for some reason, for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Even despite the fact that international community was willing in the first 72 hours to send in their own helicopters, their own search and rescue teams with their own dogs and their own equipment, their own everything. They were independent. Like, that's normally what happens worldwide when there's a major earthquake like there was up there. And Japan wouldn't let anybody go in up there. And of course, there was the Shika nuclear power plant, where they made a claim that there was an upper 5 in the basement of it, which is, like an 8 on the Richter scale in the basement of a reactor building. I never heard of those kind of connotations before. Yeah, we had a big earthquake in the basement of our building. Like, who says stuff like that? Earthquake shakes the whole country. Hence, it shakes like, that's half the country shaking right there at enormous shakes. And this industry can't survive any scrutiny whatsoever. It can't survive any kind of scrutiny. Okay, we'll give it up. It's probably time to give it up, is it? We've been at this for a while. Okay. One more poke at. I got a great sound here to close up. But should President Trump's temperament, could President Trump's temperament raise the nuclear use concern? Yeah. Hell yeah. So, I'm going to play. I'll show you a picture of it. I'm going to play Did I Sell Secrets to Pakistan? There's about 6,000 activists charged with sedition because they protest, and that's the song over there, because they protest a nuclear power plant. They were told they were going to build a farm or a factory close to their community, and they needed land, so they sold them the land really cheap because there was going to be a lot of jobs. It wasn't for them, and it wasn't a factory, it was a nuclear power plant. And so they protested. There was 10,000 of them originally charged with sedition. And it's in my playlist that I posted in the description there earlier, the very first song, actually, I believe. And just still a lot of songs to add to that playlist. I wanted to get something out there, and I keep forgetting about doing it. Every time I say I'll do it in a little bit, it never gets done, so I just went in and done it. And thank goodness that I got it started, all right? A special playlist of music that I know everybody on the planet can agree with. And this is one of the songs on it. And if you start listening to the song, once it gets going, you'll see what I mean. It's an anti-nuclear song of 6,000 people charged with sedition, just telling that story. And they kind of describe, it's fascinating. Have a great night. Thanks for everybody. God bless everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. Take care.
I stood by the shore and I said what I thought about Kudankulam near our homes. I spoke of fish and children at night. They said I was speaking against the state. I was not asking for anything grand. I only asked what came from that plant. They called it sedition for saying those things. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I say too much? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why call my worry sedition? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I step out of place? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why answer me with handcuffs? They spoke of progress, they spoke of pride, they spoke as if nuclear was care. I spoke of water, boats and nets. They answered like I should not be there. Now I am wiser, now I am calmer. Now I repeat what they told me is true. If someone gets sick, it must be something else. Nuclear saves lives, or so they say. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I say too much? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why call my worry sedition? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I step out of place? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why charge me and put me in handcuffs? Now I get it, now I understand. Nuclear is clean. Now I get it, now I understand. It was only me. Now I get it, now I understand. I was making trouble then. Nuclear is kind and clean. That's what I say now here. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? I only spoke of our shores. If nuclear is so clean and safe, why am I quieter now? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? I only asked what it means. Now when they speak of a future built on nuclear, I say that nuclear is clean.